You're now listening to Sound Talent Media. Check out more shows at soundtalentmedia.com.
Hey, what's up, everyone? I'm Matt Migaki, the vocalist of Cryptopsy and the host of the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast, where I sit down with fellow metal musicians. We talk all about their lives and music while sharing killer craft beers. If you've ever wanted to sneak backstage and share a beer with one of your favorite musicians, well, Vox and Hops is the podcast for you. This week on the podcast, I dropped a killer episode with Kelly Schaefer of Atheist. There is this episode and over 440 other ones to help you enjoy life, metal, and craft beer. So what are you waiting for? It's time to become a Vox and Hops head. Cheers.
Hello, ho, 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 and welcome to another episode of the podcast. Thank you so much for hanging out with me week after week. It seriously means the world. I cannot believe that I get to do this. It is astounding. And I tell you, this episode is one of those pinch me moments. I've had so many now that I think am I in some weird sort of dream? Some sort of weird interdimensional travel that I'm going to wake up from and just be in a floating tank of goo, and I'll be like, put me back in, put me back in, put me back in. I don't know. It's possible. Allow me to explain. So Big KO, one of this podcast's favorite guests, one of the guests that I've gotten the most feedback on, the most messages on, the most comments on, etc. He asked me, would you like to get Eddie Martinez on? I was like, oh, wow. Okay, this is a big deal. Eddie has played on so many songs. So many songs. Most importantly to me, on a personal level, would be the Bat Out of Hell sessions with Meatloaf. That was extremely important to me, not only as I heard those songs growing up, but as I kind of came into adulthood and struck out on my own. Those songs held a very special place to me that I explain on this episode. But also Rockbox, a song that changed music forever. Too many things to list on this intro. We try to go through a giant majority on this podcast, and we don't even scratch the surface, to be honest. Also, Big KO is on this one, and it's perfect because he has a much more vast knowledge of this era of music than I do, specifically of Eddie's work. And so it's kind of like a double interview situation. I'm interviewing Eddie, he's interviewing Eddie, and it's just, we talk about gear, we talk about the time, we talk about everything. This is such a special episode. It's one of those special episodes. It's right up there with talking to Mike Mitchell from the Kingsmen, which is also, if you have not heard that, go back. I interviewed Mike Mitchell from the Kingsmen years ago. You got to go check that episode out if you have not. It's a wow. It's just something that, again, one of those pinch me episodes. It's one of those. I hope you enjoy this as much as I did. Eddie and I had an epic conversation on our own about gear specifically and what he's using today on the Patreon. I mean, this is just an insane thing that happened. And I hope that Eddie and I get to hang out in person and nerd out to the fullest extent one of these days. But for now, this is just, it's so good. Wow, I went on for 3 minutes talking about how good this is. How about we just get to the episode? Let's do this. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Tone Mob Podcast, the show about guitar stuff, occasionally, sometimes. I'm your host, Blake Weiland, and with me today I have Mr. Eddie Martinez, and returning, one of the best guests of the last couple of years, Big KO. I can't tell you how much feedback I've gotten on our episodes because I released the Patreon publicly.
Yeah.
Dude, so many people loved that episode, so I'm stoked to have you back, and this is just going to be a good old nerd fest, I think. This is going to be a good time.
Thank you for having me.
Be here, man. Thank you.
So, Eddie, you know, I've done some research on you, and obviously a lot of people have heard you over the years, but maybe you give people the highlight reel of your most notable tracks that you've worked on, because it's a long list, and it's hard to cherry pick, you know. But what are some of your top favorites that stand out for you?
Oh man, it's like I've been really fortunate that I've played on some records that have really been kind of the seminal records over the last 40 years or so. Um, I would imagine, uh, Rock Box by Run DMC, King of Rock, Run DMC,
Absolutely.
Addicted to Love, Robert Palmer, Simply Irresistible, Robert Palmer, um, Sisters of Mercy, This Corrosion, a lot of Jim Steinman records. I Do Anything for Love But Won't Do That, the Meatloaf Bat 2 album, David Lee Roth, Crazy from the Heat, Steve Winwood, all those records. And then uh, Ryuichi Sakamoto, who's a brilliant Japanese artist,
Hmm.
just, brilliant composer. And he has a wide range of music. And those have been, great highlights. And then Jagger, too, man, on She's the Boss.
Oh,
So
some
these are,
some guy named Jagger. Who's that?
yeah,
Huh, yeah.
yeah. Those been really great moments,
Mhm.
and that called for different things as a musician.
Yeah. I mean, so it's funny for me personally, and I know everybody's going to have their hits, right? But like, there's a special moment in this house when my wife and I first got married. We came here, we got like all our TV and everything set up for the first time. And it's when you move into a new place, even though it's
Hmm.
yours, it kind of feels like a hotel for a while.
Yes.
It feels
Oh
kind of
yeah.
weird. Yeah.
Yes.
So but to like break in our house, we would just crank Meatloaf like
Oh wow.
every night for like, I don't know, for like weeks. We would just play Meatloaf just nonstop and just sing at the top of our lungs. And I was always thinking, of course, me being me, I'm like, man, these guitars are interesting. Like, like everyone thinks about the power ballad aspect of it, but like the actual guitar tones on that song are pretty massive. What were you using?
Oh wow. Oh man. When you work with Jim Steinman, who passed away, I think earlier this year, um, there was the possibilities were just so limitless. So I mean, I bring down my entire arsenal, and sometimes I'd have like five half stacks just blaring in
Hmm.
Studio A at Power Station.
Oh
And I think
man.
when I first started working with Jim was on a Bonnie Tyler album, and did this song. The first song I worked on with Jim was a song called "Loving You's a Dirty Job, but Someone's Got to Do It." And the track had been cut, and I heard through the grapevine that you know that I should reach out to him and his assistant because he was looking for a solo on this track. So I reached out to his assistant Don Kettler, and I says, I hear you guys are looking for like a solo for this track, and I'd love to do it. And initially he said, well, no, I don't know anything about that,
Mhm.
so sorry. Then a few days later, I get a call back from him again saying, when can you come down to the to Power Station? So I brought all my big guns down there, man. I brought my 58 Stratocaster and I brought some other, guitars. And I wound up using a 58 Strat through, I think it was uh, either two or three heads and five cabinets, you know, and I just cranked that
Whoa.
up. And I think I had a dirt box in front of it too, and it just sounded really enormous. And that was the beginning of our relationship, and Jim just loved what I did because I was just like, I was just being me
Hmm.
and just trying to play big and soulful notes, and he loved that. So that began our association. So I worked on his Pandora's box and worked with him, geez, I mean, just on a bunch of things. And then we did Bat 2, Bat
Hmm.
Out of Hell 2. If I would do anything for love. And on that, I used, oh man, it was a combination of things, but I do recall I had a Yamaha that I was endorsing Yamaha back in the, let's see, around 90 91. I was
Hmm.
endorsing Yamaha. And they built me these one off Pacificas, and it was I used a purple metal flake Pacifica and also a platinum metal flake
Wow.
Pacifica, which I still have actually. And I used that and a bunch of different amps. I think I was still using my Bradshaw system. I had a Bradshaw system that I was, had custom audio preamps Also had Marshall amps in a relay that bypassed the loops, just went straight into the front end. And I
Mm-hmm.
was using either H&H, the V800, VH800
Oh yeah.
MOSFET power amp, and then I was using the oh, she's the what's that other company? Um, the name eludes me right now. But there was another preamp, but it was loud. I'm just saying, you know.
That's a
And
lot in
yeah, I was really happy with. I used custom shop Strats on that. I used Pacificas. I had some Hamers. I had a my Hitmaker red Hamer that I've had ever since I was with Blondie, and that was on there as well. But that purple Metal Flake Pacifica used at the top because there's a beginning. Uh, if you listen to "I Do Anything for Love, I Won't Do That," there's a whole opening at the beginning that's just like a sonic pastiche,
yep.
you know, and that's all me doing guitars and just doing crazy, and yeah. Oh, I also used um, uh, uh, Pensa Sir that John Sir before he formed his own company.
Oh,
He used to
yeah.
work. He used to work out of Rudy's Guitar Stop, and way back in the day, back in the '80s, he built me a one-off carved top Strat thing that was stolen, you know.
Oh.
Um, but I used that on that track too. So there were a lot of guitars on there, man. And, it was always exciting working with Jim, because you'd start like around, you know, you the sessions used to start around midday. Then before you know it, sessions are starting at 7, 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night, and going right through breakfast. So yeah, that was a lot of fun working with Jim. He's missed, and so is Meat. Meat was a lot of fun, man.
Oh man.
Great.
Yeah, that was sad, but great
So,
music, great memories. Then
so
Yeah.
it's
just to jump in quickly, Eddie, on on those particular sessions, and when you're working with a producer like Steinman, were you getting after the session? Was he sending you home with like a rough mix to listen to, or did you have to wait for him to do all the orchestration and get the final mix done? Like, when did you get like final copies of that record?
A lot of that stuff was cut live.
Yeah.
The
So
Bat 2 was cut live. We cut a lot of that in Studio A with
did he give you like cassettes to go home with, or DAT tapes, or anything to listen to, or did you just had to wait till the record came out?
you just wait till a session, you
Right,
know.
right.
Yeah, that was part of the gig. You get called for a session. You don't know you don't know what it's going to be. Sometimes there's charts written. Sometimes you just have to write a chart yourself. You know, and the thing with Jim's tunes, they were long. I mean, they were like 6 or 7 minutes long. So you had to write a really complete kind of roadmap of where the track was going. And
Sure,
sometimes
and,
have
and and you had to go there and do it a lot of times, like you said, on the spot. So
yeah, yeah,
I find
yeah.
that's remarkable. I mean, because in those
Oh,
days the tape is running. When you get to the studio, you're setting up your stuff, and when they say, Eddie, it's time to rip, your ideas kind of have to be formulated. And it's not the luxury that producers and guitar players have now of recording in their house. Like when you would get a call, I mean, you said you showed up with an arsenal, and
yeah.
that's super inspiring because it's like, what do you bring to make history like that? In retrospect, and years later, you might have been like, oh, I wish I would have brought this guitar, or brought that guitar, but it was what it was. You had those guitars, those amps, and those pedals, and what you
Yeah,
put on tape lives
I would
forever.
bring I would bring a really big cross section of what I had. So the thing that when you're doing sessions, you never know what it's going to be. You never know what you're going to need, because if you're serving the song may be calling for a Telecaster. You know,
Sure.
right.
maybe calling for a Les Paul or a Strat or something in between. A Gretsch. So I would bring Gretsch 6120s. I would bring Jazz Masters. I would bring Les Pauls, Stratocasters. I would bring the Bradshaw system that Bob built for me and John Sir. They both collaborated on that for me. Or I'd bring Tweed. I had Tweed Deluxes and Tweed Pros and 50-watt Marshalls. I mean, just whatever you need because you know it's all about what's appropriate for the song.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way I look at it.
I was gonna say, like, another big contrast to recording today is, you come into a studio and you got a deluxe reverb and you turn it up to 4 and the engineer's like, hold on, that's a little bit too much. Like we're gonna need to tone that down. And it's like, man, you're getting Marshalls all raging in there and everything. It had to have been just
interesting.
magnificent.
Are you experiencing that now, that engineers are telling you that it's too loud?
Oh yeah, but it's not. It's like barely even going.
Right, it's not. See, that's the funny thing, because when I first started doing sessions, that's what I would hear. Because back in the day when I was first starting out, I would do sessions for nothing, just for the experience. I
Right.
needed the experience of what? Okay, I'm dialing up this sound in the studio. How does that translate in the control room when you're listening back? These are valuable things that you need to learn. Nowadays people are just plugging into modelers, and everything's on stun, and an engineer doesn't have to really worry about, the level that much. You're either giving them a little bit or more, but the sound is ostensibly it's there. It's like, but back in those days, and I think it was a bit more rewarding, to be honest with you, because you had to search.
Yeah.
You had to search for the vibe, and that meant a little experimentation, maybe taking a little bit more time on getting tones. Back in the day, I remember, the first day of a recording session was drums were getting sounds.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Drums were getting sounds for most of the day for big rock sessions back in the day, because they were searching for they were searching for a sound that was going to be unique. It was not something out of a box, So they'd be working and experimenting with getting things, and then they'd work on all the other instruments respectively until you had something that was really cohesive. So, yeah, there was a lot more blood, sweat, and tears involved in getting to that point. But boy, it was so rewarding. It was so rewarding. Nowadays, it's and I don't mean that what's new isn't as good.
Right.
It's just different, and what the younger generation are doing with the tools that they have, they're doing some incredible things too, sonically as well, in terms of what's going on in the world of digital recording, and all the infinite possibilities that gives people, relative to editing or whatever composition. It's really it's all good.
Yes.
And I just come from sensibilities that come a little differently, that I have to feel it a bit more organically,
Yeah.
for it to be relevant for me.
Yeah. I've been fortunate that I've gotten to dip my toes in both worlds. The first actual record that I recorded, we did it very old school, minus we didn't record to tape. But everything else, we did. We spent the whole day getting drum sounds and placing mics, and then I brought at the time what I thought was a ridiculous amount of gear. And now because I brought basically everything I owned, and now I've got like probably 8 times that. So I guess what is ridiculous, but I did do all that. But now I am a lot more in the box than I ever thought I would be. And what I'm realizing about both approaches is that they feed into each other. And if you understand the quote unquote older way of doing it, it gives you an idea of how to work in the box better. And it also makes you realize what's great about recording all digitally, where you can do things digitally that are literally not physically possible. You can take a Benson reverb, spring reverb unit and put it on the whole mix if you want.
Yeah.
Which you can't do in the real world, quote unquote. So I think they feed into each other, and it's about finding what works more than just being fixed on any one method.
Yeah, for example, what I'm doing right now, I'm working on an EP that I hope to put out in Q1 of 23.
Oh, sweet.
And basically it's tracks that I cut back in the 90s, in the mid 90s, around 96. And all that stuff was cut with Jason Corsaro, who was a dear friend of mine that passed away about 5-6 years ago. And he's responsible for, the Power Station drum sound, the Addicted to Love drum sound, Public Image Soundgarden, Robert Palmer, Elvin Jones. The whole broad spectrum, to Peter Gabriel. Just an incredible, innovative, groundbreaking engineer that left us way too soon. I feel that he's been overlooked in terms of his significance, and everything from Madonna, like a Virgin album to Aha, or or In Excess, but and everybody in between. So he was a good buddy of mine. So we cut these tracks, and I've got Jack Daly on some tracks. Jack is from played with Lenny Kravitz for years. Now he's out with some other people. He's got his own studio. He's a great bass player, and a drummer by the name of Tony James. That's out of Nashville, and he played on these tracks. And he's a New Yorker too, so we cut these tracks in New York. And also have Alan Childs, who's a great drummer, played with Bowie and Julian Lennon, and out on tour right now with John Waite. And he's an old buddy of mine. Played on my first solo album, and they played their butts off on it. So I was able to get this stuff in analog, transfer it to Pro Tools sessions, and build on that. So there's a lot of, slab board Stratocasters on there, 56 Les Paul Juniors, 52 gold top conversions, on that. And so it was right when I made that pivot from going to pointy guitars to going to like the real, you know, and some real kind of, having a Strat sound like a Strat and a Les Paul sound like a Les Paul, and so I was doing that, and so right now I'm revisiting these tracks and I'm fixing things that, because 26 years is a long time, and I'm a much better player now than I was back then. But right there, you have to offset. Well, gee, there was an energy that's undeniable on that. So I have to really pick my shots as to what I wanna change. So what I've been doing in a small studio that has a small room is just like it's not the optimal place to bring in stacks and big amps. So I just got the Fractal FM9 and been messing around with that. And I've got some smoking sounds coming out of that to augment what I already have. So I'm embracing the new for stuff that was cut like 26 years ago, and I'm having a fun time doing it. It's really, I'm having a hoot.
That sounds very, very interesting. That's such a wild thing. I bet when you originally cut those tracks, you're not like, I'm gonna put this out 26 years later. Like, what happened that put the pause on that?
Hi, I'm Vincent, and I'm here to talk about the Merit Mercury X. My dad's always going on and on about how cool Maris is. He really went off on one about the Mercury X the other day. He said something about a 4,800 hertz sample rate and 99 preset locations and 33 banks, and something along the lines of the most advanced reverb pedal ever devised by man? That's all true, but I only care about one thing. This pedal sounds sick. So make sure you check out the Mercury X and all the other fine products at maris.us, as well as fine retailers worldwide. All right, Dad, now can I have my Pocky?
How exactly do artists get their music on Spotify, Apple Music, Deezer, Tidal, all these services? How in the world do you get your music there? Well, in the past, you had to use something called a record label. But these days, you can use DistroKid. DistroKid is the absolute easiest way to get your music up on streaming services, and it's the most affordable way to do so. Not only do plans start at $22.99 for the entire year, that's less than $2 a month, DistroKid also does not take a cut of your streaming revenue, unlike some other services out there. Even better if you sign up by going to tonemob.com/distrokid. That's tonemob.com/distrokid. One more time, that's tonemob.com/distrokid. You'll get 30% off. That's right, 30% off their already extremely reasonable prices. So go to tonemob.com/distrokid and get your music out there.
That's a good, it's like, well, basically what put the pause on it was I was hoping to get a record deal from it, and a record deal didn't materialize. So I just left it on the back burner. The tapes were at Jason's house, and after he passed, his sisters found it for me and gave it back to me.
Oh, wow.
Really grateful, to them for that. So it was just an opportunity, like, you make an investment in yourself, really, what it was at that time. And it didn't pan out, and I needed to get back to work, doing things, put food on the table, so get back to sessions and doing whatever touring was available. and all that. So mostly at that time it was session.
Got it.
Yeah.
So fast forward to now. Are you planning on putting this out yourself, or using like a DistroKid type thing, or what is your
Yeah,
plan?
I'm putting it out myself. I released an album around 3 or 4 years ago, on my own label, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and you can find it at iTunes and Amazon and CD Baby, and so that's what I did, and I love doing that because I didn't have to answer to a record label, and I just put it out there in the ether, and let people know about it, and it's been a fun experience, and I'm looking forward to doing that again.
Yeah, absolutely. That is something that I say is like 100, in my opinion. I've only known this way, really, but to me, the ability to put out your own stuff now is so crucial, and it honestly, because like you said, you were hoping to get a record deal, but putting out a record back then was an expensive and difficult thing, even after it was recorded.
Well,
You
yeah,
needed that support. You can't just click a button, and
yeah.
get it out there.
Back in the '80s and the '90s, it was an entirely different landscape. And right there at that point in '96, I think that the world kind of shifted relative to making records and record labels and budgets. Because back in the day, you know, uh, the budgets were, I mean, anywhere from $350,000 on up. I mean, the Meatloaf
Wow.
album was just an astronomical budget to make that record, but they sold records, so everybody's happy, and
Mm-hmm.
I remember, I had a band with Tony Thompson of Power Station and Bernard Edwards of Chic and Power Station called and we put that out right around in the cusp. Came out in '89. You know, um, it just it came out, and the record label didn't support it the way we had hoped that they would because there was so much excitement about it.
Mm-hmm.
But it just didn't pan out. It just didn't pan out. But I'm really proud of that album that we made because it's killing. It's
Yeah,
killing.
that was an
Yeah.
amazing album.
Oh, thank you, man.
When you said Tony Thompson, my eyes lit up because I just want to just throw it back a little bit. Tony Thompson, Bernard Edwards, Nile Rodgers, Chic. It's the New York sound. Eddie, you were there uh, at the forefront. He was one of those New York cats, like those musicians that we had talked about it last year with me, you, and DMC. But
Yes, yes,
those guys that were playing, and there were so many bands in Queens and in New York in that area. But uh, Tom Brown coming out of Jamaica,
yeah.
Lenny Williams, who you talked about before,
Oh, Lynn
uh,
White. Yeah,
Lenny White, excuse me, Weldon Irvine,
yeah.
all this great talent come out of Queens. Now, in the '76, you were playing for LaBelle on
Yes,
the road, correct?
yes.
Did you play on that record, or was it just the road stuff?
I played on the last album that they made called Chameleon.
Right.
Uh,
And you were how old when you cut that record?
I was 23, 24, around that.
And if I'm not mistaken, you were on Soul Train behind that
Yeah,
promo
that.
run.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, I did Soul Train two times with LaBelle, and that was
Okay,
an experience.
hold that. What
Okay.
was it like being a 23-year-old in 1977, living the dream, playing on Soul Train with
Dude.
LaBelle? Can you tap into that day or that filming?
Oh yeah, yeah. We did Soul Train in '75, and we did it in '76.
I was
So
born in 1975.
okay, okay. So we did it. Let's see. In '75, I was 22, about to turn 23
It,
in
it,
September of that year. So it was the man. The first show that I did with LaBelle was the Share Show, and that was
right,
in
Cher had a variety show.
So we went there. We went to LA to do the Cher Show, Don Kirshner's rock concert, and also Soul Train.
and and all of these performances are definitely online. I have to look them
Yeah,
up.
they're somewhere there. Yeah, and I had my
Yeah,
50 rats.
unbelievable, unbelievable.
I know what I'm doing after this episode's over.
To be young in the 70s, coming from where coming from the South Bronx, and now you're in LA. You're playing with LaBelle, who at that time she's still Patti LaBelle from
Oh my
Bluebells, and they were amazing. Like, had to be
Patty. It was,
absolutely mind blowing.
well, it was. I'll tell you why. Because those three women are powerful artists in their own right, and they were really true to themselves relative to what they were doing artistically and
Yeah, they
visually.
were taking no mess from no one.
Oh my
Mhm.
goodness! And every night was a clinic.
Yeah,
Every night was
yeah.
a clinic, what to do and how to do it.
Patti
Because
LaBelle, Nona Hendrix, the great Sarah Dash, rest in
yeah,
peace.
yes,
LaBelle, I mean, that's a question I wanted to ask you because when I was 23, I was just breaking into the business. I was starting to produce records, but it was in the late 90s. It was way different.
hmm
I couldn't even imagine being on the same stage with Don Cornelius. Who else? Do you remember who else was on that particular show with you guys?
Um,
Who the other guests were?
I think first, I don't remember anybody else on that taping
Right.
that we did it, but I do remember the second time we did it, which was in '76, was that I met Minnie Riperton
Oh,
because she was going to be doing, you know how they shoot shows, they just
sure.
like, artist after another, and they kind of cut around it and
Uh
stuff. And
huh.
and I met her briefly, and I was an enormous fan of Minnie Riperton.
Oh
I mean,
man. See,
she was just amazing.
and
You know, that was like
that's the question. Like little questions. Like I sometimes I want to text you and bother you about it. Like I'm not going to bother them about it. But just hearing stuff like that gives me goosebumps. So what was it like to go back? We're going to pivot from Soul Train real quick. But what was it
okay.
like to go back home? Because I'm sure that's taped, and then it airs probably a couple weeks to months later. Did you get a
Yeah.
chance to see the airing of Soul Train with your family? And what was your family's response to now?
Well, no, back then, man, we were. I mean, with LaBelle, man, we were always working. We were always hitting.
So
You
you
know,
never got a chance to see it televised.
most likely, I probably missed it the first time it aired.
Right.
You know, but my brothers, and my parents, it's like, I mean, my dad had to, save up money to get me my first guitar, man. It's just like
Yeah.
you just didn't walk into a store and get a guitar. You
Sure. Sure.
that I wanted one, and he had to save up for that. So that made me really feel good that my parents, my mom and dad, who totally supported me, they they let me do gigs at 16 years old, coming back home at 2:30 in the morning on the D train. You
Yeah.
know,
Wow.
you
Same
know,
here. Same here. So I was coming home on the A, all the way back to Far Rockaway. Last stop on the A train. First stop in
wow.
your heart.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, that's what feels so amazing, Ed. Because I was that same kid that we talked about it before. I begged my parents for a guitar at the Christmas of '86
Mm.
because of the riffs that you played.
Oh,
Like literally, like there was. I had to. I remember playing the King of Rock video for my dad in the VCR. Like, see, I want a red guitar,
oh man.
just like his. And again, my parents had to save for that. And again, my dad got that guitar from Sam Ash and Carl Place in Long Island. There
Yeah.
wasn't Sam Ashes and guitar centers all over the place at that time. It was a one shot deal, and I got my Hondo Strat replica. It wasn't red, but
hmm
you couldn't tell me I wasn't Eddie Martinez on top of that damn Cadillac when I got it.
Oh, so flattering, man. It's like, my parents were so happy. They saw, their investment kind of paying off and me doing some really cool things, and eternally grateful for them, because they're no longer here. And it's just amazing that dedication to me, I was able to kind of show them I did something with it, and my brothers too. It kind of like gave my brothers tell me that you have no idea how inspiring it was for them to see me, and inspire them to pursue their things. And my brothers have been extraordinarily successful in business and in
Yeah.
life.
And that's something that me and D talk about all the time. How inspiration works both ways. Because when I was a kid, Eddie, There was nobody that looked like me on MTV. So to see you coming through, Puerto Rican cat with afro on top of a Cadillac with Run DMC, it changed my trajectory. And honestly, coming up in urban environments, if you don't have something to steer you, out of negative situations, you may get into trouble. And music helped steer me in the right direction. And that's my parents embraced it because of that. My dad was like, anything that's going to keep him inside and off the corner, I'm going to help him to do. And he saved up to get that money. And so to say that how proud your family is, it means a lot. I think, Blake, it is important for your listeners. Like, you can't always judge what you do with music and guitar by commercial success. Sometimes you're inspiring people and you're changing their lives without even knowing it, and that's what's really cool. And if guitarists and musicians out there are ever looking to inspire themselves, just try to help others and be a light to others. Like, pass on gear, pass on knowledge, pass on equipment, pass on the love. Like the Eddie doesn't have to do interviews with me and be cool and he's sending me a positive vibration that's going to last in my soul forever, and I'm going to pass it on to other players, and the story's going to repeat. But it's all good vibes and good energy, and it starts with pride in what you're doing, and when your family is proud of you, man, it really shows in the music. And recently, my mom told me that she would, moms from that live in New York are hardcore. My mom. It's a lot of things going on in New York, and women are tough, and so it's hard to, get some emotions out of it. But my mom recently told me that she was very, very proud of me. I think she had seen DMC on Good Morning America, and I think for her, she kind of puts everything like, oh wow, like. So it's very inspiring, man.
Oh, that's wonderful, man.
That's what keeps us playing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's that you never stop learning, because gosh, this instrument is so humbling. It's humble.
Oh, geez.
Right. You just said that you're a better guitarist now than you were 26 years ago, and you were my idol 35 years ago. So which just goes to show that you never ever stop learning. And you're absolutely right. I am a phenomenally better player than I was even last year. So you can never ever, as long as you have 6 strings, a piece of wood, and
Paul Jr., man, I love that axe.
I just got it. And I gotta tell you, Ed is my favorite. And just to riff on that real quick, I'm coming out with my own signature P90.
Oh, cool.
Blake, our homie Dylan is making it. It's going to be called the B85, the Big KO 1985, because we all know 85 is the year for me, King of Rock. So it's going to be a super P90. Dylan from the Dylan Talk Tone is hooking it up. It'll be out soon. Ed, I'm going to make sure when he sends me out tomorrow, I'm going to make sure he sends you one too.
Okay, cool, man.
So the B85, and it's going to give you is the P90 if you want to play all Eddie's riffs, Rock Box, King Rock. But for me, the P90 is so light, it's giving my shoulders a rest, giving my back a rest.
I heard that.
And I'm a big Mountain fan, so there it is.
Oh, there you go.
I love Mountain. I saw them so many times live.
That was my next question. Blake, I'm sorry. I have to ask Eddie one more question. Okay.
Keep going, man.
We are New York cats, right?
Yep.
I love New York bands, and my daughter recently told me, Dad, all of your bands you really love are New York bands. Kiss, Mountain, Leslie West. Mountain was the quintessential New York band. I don't think people really realize that. Leslie West from Forest Hills, Queens.
Yeah, man. Used to play in the Vagrants before.
Right. The Vagrants were a big band on Long Island in the 60s. They played. Yep. They were signed to Atlantic, and that's how Felix Popularity started producing them. But the Vagrants actually played my dad's high school. My dad went to high school in Long Island.
Wow.
And the Vagrants used to play high schools back then.
Yeah.
The
Whoa.
Vagrants played my dad's high school in 1967, and my dad told me a story about how he had met this guitarist, and he was in a band called Mountain. He told me this when I was real little, that he met him back in high school. Years later, I come to find out it's Mountain, Leslie West. But Eddie, Mountain must have played Fillmore East more than any band.
I saw them at the Fillmore at least twice. I saw them at the Capitol Theater in Rochester.
Ugh.
Not Rochester, Capitol Theater in upstate New York.
Passaic?
No, I saw them in Passaic, and I saw them also. There's another Capitol Theater in it's in Westchester. It's in Westchester.
Right.
I forget the city.
Now they would play weeks, like a week engagement at the Fillmore.
Yeah,
4 shows in a row.
I saw them that engagement. I saw, man, they opened up with Never in My Life, and the lights, and they came in with that downbeat at the same time. They
Yeah.
The lights came on, man. I mean, it's like they were rattling the paint off the ceiling that place, man. It was
those Sun amps. Like I've seen clips from those Fillmore shows playing with Leslie. Felix Popularity had 6 cabinets.
Yep.
6 Suns, so it's 3 stacks.
Yep.
Leslie had 3 stacks.
Yep.
6 cabinets, and the cabinets I think are I don't know how many speakers. The bass cabinets have
15s.
15s.
Yeah.
And Felix Popularity by 1974, his left ear was shot.
Wow, I bet. Because they
all that wattage. But I can only imagine the quintessential New York band playing at the quintessential New York establishment. There are tapes and CDs of those Fillmore shows, and just knowing that you were there.
Man, I saw them in Central Park. I saw them at least 6 or 7 times.
Wow.
Man. And then Leslie had a band after Felix passed away, and he had Mick Jones from Foreigner was playing.
Yes.
And a good. I know Mick. I know Mick for many years. I know Mick since the early '70s, and he also Kenny Aronson was playing bass, who's an old friend of mine too. And that was a great band. And Leslie was playing a Flying V. That blew my mind. I saw him playing a black Flying V, and so because every time I'd see him was with the Junior. But
Flying V. I think he had a P90 pickup, and the neck pickup was taken out and it was empty, and he used it as like an ashtray.
But they were great, man. They played with such fire. And a little secret, actually, I had lunch with Conrad Sundholm from Sun Amps. He's from Portland.
Right here.
Yeah. And I had lunch with him a few years ago, and we spoke about Mountain and Hendrix and all that stuff, and really nice guy. And the secret about those Sun heads that Leslie played, those were PA heads. So they had a master volume. So he could crank the amp all the way up and then adjust so he can get the preamp blowing up and then adjust the volume accordingly. So because, man, I played out of Sun guitar amps way back in the day. And, as a bass amp, it was great. Just plug straight in. It was rich and deep sounding. But the guitar amp, it just didn't have that crunch.
Right.
But PA head did.
Because of that master volume.
You can blow up the preamp. You can really push the preamp. And that's how we got all that sustain and gain and crunchiness. That's how it worked for him. And that was really that's like really the first master volume guitar amp when you think about it in terms of how he was applying a PA head as a guitar.
Sure. And what's even more fascinating about that, talking to Chris Benson, when he was designing my amp and when I was reading up on Benson amps, Blake can chime in that Chris worked for that particular gentleman from Sun Amps. Am I correct? Or he was Chris said that he was inspired by those circuits, heavily inspired by those circuits. He was working on a lot of repairs.
Yeah.
So a lot of that Benson magic is because of Chris's love for those Sun circuits.
Yeah.
And him doing his thing with them and really making them sing. And like my amp, of course, my amp is called the Rock Box, and it's named after one of your classics, and to me, and I just have to just rave about how really great Benson amps are. I know you can talk about it, Eddie.
Oh, yeah. Chimera right over here, man. That's just like killing, cabinet and stuff. And I just had him make mine with EO34s, and I had him take the power scaling out. I just wanted a real stripped down beast. And the thing is great. It's just got such great clarity, and it sounds great when it's pushed. It's just really a lot of fun, that amp.
The notes bloom on a Benson, very unique. Like to me, like when I hit it with pedals, it's not loose and flabby. I'm thinking the pine cabinet is so concentrated, and it's so it compresses the sound so beautifully.
Well, everything contributes to the sound, man. So where the cabinet's made, and how he's voiced the amplifier and the speakers that are being used, and it's just he's really he's a great builder.
He's amazing, and my amp has that extra mojo because you signed it, the inside of it.
It's not because I drooled on it before you got it. Are you sure it's not that?
Yo, Eddie played it and touched it before I even seen it.
Chris brought it to my house, and I lit it up, and I played my 60. I got a 61 SG Les Paul, so I plugged that into the thing and cranked it up. It sounded monstrous. So
when I was a kid playing air guitar at the King of Rock in 1985, if anyone would have told me that, years later, I would have the pleasure of working with such great companies, producing for legendary artists, but really being able to talk to somebody who directly influenced me. I was playing air guitar to your.
Oh man, flattering.
But what's even crazy is that inadvertently, because of all the other great records you played on, because I didn't know about Addicted to Love until years later, till you're looking at the credits.
Mm-hmm.
But just tremendously iconic songs and riffs. But you could not have told me 35 years ago that I'd be in this position playing the great instruments I'm able to play and be able to rock with you. But just real quick, Eddie, the remix that you're on.
We are brought to you today by Sweetwater, specifically the Gear Exchange. You may have heard about this. This is a place where you can go to buy and sell your used gear. Maybe you got a pedal over there that's just kind of collecting dust. Maybe there's something you've been eyeing from the Sweetwater catalog. Well, right now is a great time to turn that unused gear into something you're actually going to use. Even better, if you sell on the Gear Exchange, you can keep 100% of the sale as long as you choose a Sweetwater gift card as your payout method. That is not too shabby because, let's be honest, most of this buying and selling we do is just to fund new gear purchases, and that is a great way to reach a wide variety of customers and keep 100% in your pocket, or rather on your pedal board. So go check out the Sweetwater Gear Exchange and turn that unused gear into something that's actually going to help you write that next huge riff.
Hello there. I'd like to introduce you to your new best friend, the Chase Bliss Audio Lossy. Lossy is a collaboration between Chase Bliss and Goodhertz. And it's meant to give you some control over those weird digital artifacts that come with very compressed audio. You're hearing it right now. All the changes that are taking place are strictly coming from my playing dynamics. I'm just interacting with the pedal and letting it do its thing. In some true stereo goodness. If you'd like some more details about Lossy, I'd invite you to head over to chaseblissaudio.com. I think gonna like what you find.
For ghetto metal, I wanted to talk about that briefly. Eddie, I had the tremendous pleasure of getting him on the remix to me and DMC's new song that came out last year, Ghetto Metal. And I think it might be the first time since back in the day that you played on the record for D. Am I right?
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been
So
since the 80s.
Wow.
So when everybody hears it, I can't wait for everybody to hear it. It's going to drop probably the first of the year. There's a moment at the end of Eddie's solo when D's vocals come back in. So it's Eddie's solo, Daryl's verse, and then my rhythm guitar underneath. And it's like the multiverse is colliding for me. It's like it's something that happens at the end of this solo. It's everything that I've ever dreamed of. It's my hero playing a solo over my production and rhythm guitar, and then DMC it's I don't know, for people who make music and for people who play guitar, I'm here to tell you that dreams do come true. So if you're a 10-year-old out there listening, if you're a teenager listening, if you're in your 20s and you've been struggling thinking that maybe music is not for you or you can't do it, or no matter what age you are, if you're in your 40s or your 50s, if playing brings you joy, play it every day.
Absolutely.
Use it every day. It's therapy. Put everything you can into it. And look, dreams do come true at every stage of your life. Everything that's great is happening to me now. I'm in my 40s and my career is the best it's ever been.
Mm-hmm.
So if I would have tapped out 20 years ago or fell victim to depression or vices and things of that nature, I wouldn't have made it to rock with my hero. So I'm just here to tell everyone, stay in the game of life. If you can wake up in the morning, be thankful for it. You've made it another day. Forget about tomorrow. Forget about yesterday. Today is what's here. Be grateful for it and make the most of it. And just play.
Really sage advice. I mean, everything you said is true, and I can say the same thing for myself. In terms of my journey as a musician, it wasn't easy back in the day on a gig. Just hit the pavement. And one thing about being a musician, especially being a studio musician for a minute, is that you develop thick skin. You have to have thick skin to survive in this business. And you can't take no for an answer. If you seek you seek, and you always kind of like focus on the ideal and focus on today. What can I do today to optimize my day, these 24 hours, not tomorrow, not yesterday, is today. What are you doing to make
So
yourself
important.
a player in the moment right now? Because I was just upstairs a minute ago, working on my arch top, working on some licks, just to be able to, because different guitars require different muscles. So you
Mm-hmm.
got your Strats, and you got your the guitars, the electric guitars, but every once in a while you pick up an acoustic guitar, and it requires a whole different application of how you approach it, and those things, really create a whole comprehensive approach to the instrument, which is good for everybody that's really serious about the instrument. Because to be a guitar player, man, I don't give a whether it's an arch top or an electric or a flat top. I mean, if it's a guitar, it's a guitar, and I love it, and I want to know about the history of the instrument. I love studying up on old instruments, whether they're electric or acoustic or flat top or whatever. And it's just that goes into the passion, because when you vibe in on an instrument, it makes you want to play it. The more you're playing, the better you're getting. It's kind of like a reciprocal kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. It's one of those things like sticking around in anything, but especially the creative fields, whatever it is, whether it's music or graphic design or whatever it is that you're doing in the creative fields, sticking around is so important because, like, quite frankly, everybody would like to do this kind of stuff for a living, right? Like, everyone's like plays something or draws something or they do something. And if they could do that all day, every day for a living, they probably would.
Yeah.
The reality is, like, unfortunately, because it is, it's a supply and demand thing. If there's a lot of supply of players, the demands, there's only so much demand. And the only ones that are going to stick around long term are the people who really love it,
Yeah.
because you have to.
You
If you
have-
don't really love it, you'll find something else to do because it's
Exactly.
easier.
Exactly. And that's, that's what I call being in the trenches when you're younger. You know what I mean? It's like, it's a challenge. It's a
Mm-hmm.
challenge going on an audition. You want to get it. Sometimes you get it. Sometimes you miss. And they're, they're, the amazing thing is that there's so much to learn from failure. And
Mm-hmm.
soon as people really need to realize that if they're learning an instrument or want to pursue something, because you know uh, you just don't fall upstairs. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? You
Right.
just don't fall upstairs. That doesn't happen. Irrespective of what you do, there's a journey, and in that journey, there are times where you may fumble, where you may drop the ball, and teachable moment. That's a learnable moment. You learn from that, and what you're not going to do the next time you're in a particular situation. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just always something to learn, you know. And if you keep that mindset, it really will pay off, because so much of what we do is a collaborative process. When you're working with an artist, it's a collaboration. You're trying to get somewhere with what you're doing, and how you get there is the secret.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of how you collaborate. Some people, don't want to kind of bend. They don't want to bend. They want to stay in their way. They want to stay in their particular mindset about how they want to do something. Now, if that was their own record, that's the luxury of doing your own record. But if you're working with
Right.
a producer, an artist, or an arranger, you have to find that common ground. You need to give them what they're looking for to make this track, propel it to be something really special. And the beauty of it is when everybody's happy, killing, and then the thing sells millions of records. That's like really that's really just like the of the stars come together, and it's special, and sometimes that doesn't happen, and that's a lesson to be learned as well. And
Mm-hmm.
it's such a different business nowadays than it was in years past. And I don't know if it's necessarily for the better, but it's different, and we need to embrace it. you know
Mm-hmm.
but it wasn't easy back then either.
That's something I've actually said a lot. And, obviously I wasn't around back then, but if I try to study and read and talk to people, and, people bemoan the state of the music industry these days. But when I look at it, I'm going, I don't know. Some things, yes, there is some bad, but realistically, this has never been easy, ever. It's
Yeah.
never been easy to make your living as an artist at any point. There are
Yeah.
thousands of bands that have toured and toured and toured and toured and toured during the 60s through the 80s that no
Hmm.
one's ever heard of it again. And
Yeah.
they worked really, really hard for a really long time and it didn't pan out. You're telling me that's easier than making videos and posting them to social media? I don't think so.
No.
I mean, I'm not. I like making videos and posting them to social media. I'm not hating on that at all. I just think touring and touring and touring is much more difficult, and that was the only way to get recognized. Now, if you just keep at it and you keep going, somebody's going to pay attention at some point.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
kinda like I don't equate likes to dollars necessarily. You know what I mean?
It does. Oh, it's because it's not.
yeah. You can't pay your bills with a bunch of likes.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And the streaming mechanicals for streams are just so. I mean, it's just, man, it's like when you think about the kind of bank cats like Lionel Richie and Bruce Springsteen and Prince and Fleetwood Mac were pulling in from the 70s through the 90s. I mean, it's just incredible the mechanical rates on airplay on terrestrial
Mm-hmm.
radio, as opposed to what the streaming rights are on Spotify. It's such an insult to the composers, to the artists that are performing, that they're getting a fraction. I mean, 0.0004.5 of 1 cent or something like that. It's like, come on, man. Back in the day, airplay on terrestrial radio was 3 cents. That seems like a fortune now compared to what a
Mm-hmm.
streaming rate is. So the
Mm-hmm.
monetization thing is really it's a big problem. I don't know how that's going to be sorted out. I really don't know, because I mean, it's really putting a kibosh on artists that are trying to make a living by having their music delivered in the way that is most commonly done nowadays, because people aren't buying vinyl as much as they used to. Yeah, there's an uptick in vinyl, and people aren't buying CDs, even though I'm seeing that there's an uptick in people wanting CDs nowadays. But that's all good, but the rates for streaming, which that's how people are listening to music mostly now. They're
Mm-hmm.
not listening to their local radio station, even though the people that are having their records played on terrestrial radio are making some money from that airplay. But that's really that's something that's going to have to be solved by the younger generations. I think, to come with something that's a bit more equitable.
It's a really challenging thing because, while the rates are pathetic, and I think everybody's pretty much on board with that, except the people who own the streaming platforms.
Yeah, the
What
people that own the streaming platforms are, some of them are owned by some of the record labels we're talking about.
exactly, exactly.
So
But
like um,
mm,
yes, greed is greed is a part of this thing. It's a part of people just wetting their beak. Everybody wetting
sure.
their beak, respectively, as to use that Godfather term. You know,
Hmm.
but there's an imbalance right now. There's
There is,
an
yeah. But I did want to say, like, the good thing is, though, there was only ever so much room on the radio, right?
yeah.
My stuff's never gonna be played on the radio ever. It's too weird. It's not for most people. It's a bunch of noise. It's not for most people. It's never gonna be on the radio. But there are some people who stream it. So there is kind of like a good and bad there. Like, it's lowered the gate, so to speak.
Oh, absolutely.
But
I mean, I agree
yeah,
with that. There's a fragmentation to all of this stuff that is
that's true.
beneficial, because it's up to us as artists to create our own musical communities of
Yes.
what we do. We need to see like-minded people, and that's the difference. 30, 40 years ago, the record labels were, wow, man, they got the big billboard on Sunset Boulevard, and we're pushing this out to all the major, radio stations. So we're gonna first try to break this out in the Midwest, and we're gonna do our
Mhm.
independent promotion. Make sure that all the program directors are in the loop on everything. We're gonna push this record out. Then we're gonna go to the East Coast, and we're gonna work our way west. So it's big. It's like a shotgun that
Yeah.
the pellets are coming out and they're spraying all over the place. Now with the digital, it's like really focusing on one little area,
Hmm.
and it's incumbent on us to try to find people that are like-minded, that like what we do, and that's the challenge. That's the challenge.
Yes.
Everyone in artists, that's using these platforms to get their music across. So, there's some good. I mean, when I think about the cost of making a record nowadays, it's so much less than what it used to cost. It's much easier to produce a record and to make a really really good sounding record. Doesn't cost
Hmm.
money. So that's an advantage that we have. So we can keep putting things out. We can keep
Right.
producing, putting things out, push your content out. Just push it out.
Hmm.
Generate that kind of community of people that like what you do, and they'll share it with other people, and you'll create something that it could be proven to be beneficial for you. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And I think that applies to anybody that's trying to create anything,
Yeah.
whether it's music or videos or whatever you're trying to do. That applies across the board. That was great advice.
Thank you. I agree with
Yeah.
what you said.
Mhm. Well, we're getting close to the end of the episode here. And this is normally the point where I would give the guests the opportunity to, plug anything they want to plug, shout out their cousin, or, whatever you want to do right now. You're talking to a couple thousand people. The floor is yours to do that. And then I have a
Oh
couple
man.
classic questions I wrap up on. And and
Yeah,
we
well,
say bye.
thank you for this opportunity to speak to you and all of your fans.
Mhm.
If you get a hot second, man, check out my album. It's called Akosia, Akosua. It's up
Mhm.
there on iTunes, and I've got another album coming out in Q1 of 23, and that's going to be called Elephant.
Cool.
And they're going to be about maybe 4 or 5 tracks on there from back in the mid 90s. It just rocks. It's just killing. So I'm really happy about that. And I may be doing some shows, later this year. There's not much left to it, but or maybe early in 23 with my band. But
Cool.
right now, for me as an artist, I need to be in the studio. Uh, I've got a lot of songs in my head that I need to get out.
Yeah.
And it's just like they're all up here, and I'm putting them down. But I need to just take that, do them, put them out in the ether, and move on to the next song that I'm doing, and just try to put out things that I feel are just interesting and
Mhm.
compelling, and in my own voice, in terms of what I want to say on the instrument today.
Absolutely. I love that. All right, here we go. Classic questions, and you're a New York guy, so this is going to be fun. But
Yeah,
first one is, what's your favorite Boss pedal?
my favorite Boss pedal.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, I think my favorite Boss pedal is the yellow Boss Overdrive, first generation,
OD1.
the
Mm-hmm.
OD1. That's what I used on
Yeah,
Rockbox, and that's what I used on King of Rock.
that's so
That
great.
was a great pedal. I get another one. Maybe I'll snag
Yo,
a Boss track OD1 or
did
something like
everyone
that.
hear that? He said that he used the Boss Yellow SD1 on King of Rock and Rockbox. So
Yeah.
you know what I'm doing as soon as I get off here. I'm plugging in the SD1 and I'm playing like it's 1985 again, man.
Mhm.
Wow. Ed, I
Yeah,
love you, brother. I love you, man.
Oh, that was a
I
great
got.
pedal, man. I mean,
Mm.
that shoot, man. I mean, what that was a Music Man 212 on Rockbox with that pedal
That's insane.
and my overdrive. And the Music Man's a great amp, man. I'm telling you.
They are.
You know, uh, those amps are really underrated. And that was the amp that was at the studio. I didn't bring it there. Back in those days, you plugged into what was there.
That's what I was telling. I was telling Blake last night. The story about the Boss Overdrive. I thought I guessed your answer right. Because
Mm-hmm.
I thought you might pick that one, but I was telling him basically it was you showed up with your guitar and a pedal and whatever amp was there. I'm sure Larry was like, "Let's get cranking" or whatever.
Oh yeah, oh man, Larry was so funny. Larry was so funny, man. We played in bands way before our successes. You know what I mean? And I miss him, man, because he was really a good soul. He was just such a kind, loving guy. Funny as all get out, too, man.
I mean, that
That's
had to
awesome.
be dope to bring home that gold record for that record. I mean, after you guys had worked together in the 70s, and it's the dawn of the 80s, it's some new people really don't know what's going to happen, with rap.
Yeah,
And for it
it's
to,
applaud Larry because he found he found his path. Because Larry could have played in all the funk bands and rock bands. I played in punk bands with Larry in '77. We played CBGBs. I played CBGBs with Larry Smith in a band.
Wow.
So he could play anything. But and then I noticed, like, as the '80s came around, he started really getting into the hip hop thing and the street thing, and he immersed himself in it. And then the rest is history, man, because he knew what he wanted to do, man. When he man, I want you to put some rock on this, you know, and he just want me to do my thing on that, and I was so happy to because it was a lot of fun. It's like sometimes you do sessions, you don't know you don't really have an idea what's gonna come of it, especially when you
yeah,
have a lot of
well,
different tracks. But that was really, it felt like it was a fun and a good day's work.
because that's your homie. It's different than working with a Jim Steineman because Larry Smith is someone you grew up with, you hang out with. He
Yep.
was a cool cat.
Oh, he was cool.
The clock is running, but it didn't feel like it was running.
Yeah, we toured all over America, man. Larry and I. Omar
Wow.
Hakim and Denzel Miller. We played in the band, and we had just one of those AMC uh, buses kind of deal, those little home AMC things back in the 70s. Oh my God, we went all over the place in that with an artist by the name of Jay Mason. Man, that was a lot of fun.
So to bring home the first gold record in rap is just phenomenal to me, man. Like, congratulations. And honestly, it's 2002. It's the 40th anniversary of this record, right? 1983. Next year will be the 40th anniversary of the recording of Rockbox.
Wow.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that's reason enough for me and D to come out there and let's rock a huge show.
Oh, that would be great, man.
40th anniversary is only one person that I can be on stage with, and that's you. And let's do it. Let's set that up.
That'd be fantastic.
Let's have the Benson Amp Fest, to where we get all the Benson amp players, you, myself, Celeste, and just have a 1 day jam in Portland in the woods someplace. Daryl will come out. Your band will rock, Eddie. My band, the Knockouts, will rock. Celeste will rock. And it'll be the Benson Fest.
Yeah, man. I love it. Can't wait to do that, man. That sounds like a plan.
That does. That sounds like fun. I'll be there. Well, Eddie, I'll be in trouble with the fans if I don't get this question out before we close up.
Go right ahead.
And this is the one that gets a little dicey. People get a little heated about, but it's important. What is your favorite kind of pizza?
My favorite kind of pizza. I like John's Pizzeria on Bleecker Street.
Oh, yes.
John's Pizzeria.
Yes.
Man, that's like my favorite right now.
Yeah.
Last time I was in New York, I've been in New York twice, a few times this year, but I haven't gotten a chance to go to John's on Bleecker. And I'm still seeking out. I know there are a couple places here. Actually,
I can take you around.
Okay,
I know
cool.
him.
My cousin is a chef, and he lives in Florida now, and he was a chef at a place called New York. Used to be on Barber. Now it's
my good friend Robbie manages New York Steak. Are you talking about?
Oh no, it was an Italian restaurant where they
Okay.
and pizzas, And so my cousin was a chef there, man. It was voted. This has got to be maybe 15, 16 years ago, maybe. Voted, I think, the best pizza in Portland. But I know there's some good places now. What do you like here locally?
So yeah, I like Scotty's Pizza Parlor. It's really good for the New York style slices.
Okay.
And then there's my favorite. It's like more of a like New Haven style place. It's called Demo's.
Okay.
Off of Burnside.
Okay.
Really,
New Haven, like as in New Haven, Connecticut.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yep. Cool. What's the distinction of the how they make the pie?
Well, generally it's a wood oven situation in New Haven. And so the pizzas will have a lot of char. Some New Haven person gonna be like, "No, it's coal." I don't remember what it is exactly, but the pizza will have a lot of char on it. They're cool. It's kind of like where New York pizza came from, if I'm understanding it correctly.
Okay. Because New Haven's a city. I've played there many times through the years.
Yeah. So that place is really good. There's Ken's Artisan Pizza is very good.
Okay.
There's a place here in Oregon City called Mi Familia that does like the real Italian style wood oven pizzas. Very good.
That's cool.
And then there's a guy named Jerry.
Okay.
He's got a place called Jerry's Pizza. He started it during the pandemic. He was cooking it in his house, and it's Chicago style thin crust.
Oh, thin crust.
So it's a thin, and it's cut into little squares, and you had to get on a waiting list, and he would make you a pizza in his house and then bring it to you. And then he, for a while, had a pop-up in the Bear Paw Tavern, which is right on Powell, right off of Powell. No, not Powell. What am I thinking? Oh, it's in the Brooklyn neighborhood of Portland.
Okay, sure.
It's over there by the Aladdin Theater.
Yes.
And so and then now he is now searching for a place to open his own place.
Wow.
So when Jerry opens that pizza, it's one of those ones you see pictures of it, you're like, that looks really good, and it tastes even better than it looks. So
Man.
Jerry's Pizza,
Man.
hopefully he gets a spot.
Yeah, you got to hook me up, man.
I'll take you around. I'll take you to the spots. I know two things. I know guitar stuff and I know food. That's all I know. I don't know anything else.
I mean, Portland's such a great. People don't. If some of your fans aren't from here locally, Portland is a serious food town. It is really. It is really. I mean, I'm spoiled. I'm really spoiled. And I've been all over the world, man. But Portland is second to none. I mean, it holds. So there's so many great young chefs out here. A lot of great restaurants in Southeast and Southwest and Northwest. I mean, it's just like really, it's just a great place for food.
Yep, and that's starting to spread out into the burbs. So we're getting even more like there's just a ton of good food in this area. It's just crazy.
Yeah,
we're so spoiled.
Yeah, it's it's like kind of spreading out into spreading out a little further out. But man,
yep.
I mean, Ava Jean's was the place that was pretty dope, man. I haven't been there in a minute. That's a great Italian restaurant.
Ava Jean's is great. Oh man, there's so much. We could go on and on. We'd be here for another 3 hours. Listen to all the good spots.
There's a new Italian place in town that my wife was telling me about. I forget the name of it, but she says it's the best that she's had.
Oh.
Yeah, and she knows her food. But she's killing. She's killing as a cook too. Runs a business and kills as a cook, man. It's like amazing.
Hey, you can't beat that. You can't beat that.
Exactly.
Well, Eddie, thank you so much for doing this. KO, thank you for putting this together. This was amazing. I really enjoyed this conversation. This is really awesome. Thank you.
Thank you guys for allowing me to be
thank you, man. Thanks, Big KO, man. Thank you. And such a pleasure meeting you, man.
Yeah.
Eddie, whenever I can soak up any type of knowledge and insight from you, it's always a pleasure. I sent you a note last year. A hero is more than a sandwich. That's an old movie from the 70s. If you're a 70s cat, you can dig it. I know Eddie can dig it. But
I can totally dig it.
I really, as far as I'm concerned, I really mean it. You are truly a hero to me. Thank you for everything you've done for me and all the guitar players around the world. I love you. Thank you.
Thank you, Big KO. And you got my number, man. You ever have any questions or anything, man, just hit me up. I'm always here for you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Right on. All right, everybody. For Eddie, KO, this is Blake. As always, folks, good luck and good tones.
Thank you so much. Good tones, man. I like that.
All right, there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. Actually, I know you didn't. I'm sorry. There's no way that you enjoyed this as much as I did. I was grinning like an idiot the whole time. This is, again, one of those moments. This was so cool. It's so cool to talk to somebody who has had this amount of experience and been able to have the kind of career that Eddie has. It's really a special thing. And the thing that allows me to be able to do that is the fact that you keep sharing this. It's the fact that you tell people about it. It's the fact that you keep this thing going. So please, 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 please keep doing that. Keep this in the top 5% shared podcasts on Spotify. In fact, let's try to get up higher. Can we get higher this year? The year is almost over. Please share this with somebody. If you thought this was cool, please share this with somebody that you think would enjoy it as much as you did, or even somebody that you think might like it even a fraction as much as you did. Share this around. This is what keeps it going. Seriously, thank you so much. Hope everything's going well for you. Talk to you on the internet very soon. One last thing before we totally sign off here. I just want to remind you that if you do any shopping at Stringjoy, that's Stringjoy guitar strings made in Nashville, that will help me out as well. As I've said for years, I'm heavily involved in that company, and I really do think they're making the best products on the market. So if you would like to try custom strings, go to tonemob.com/stringjoy and check them out today. I seriously love what the team down there is doing. I help them out with all kinds of things, and by you supporting them, you are also supporting me as well. And hey, you need some strings, so why not get some custom strings
just for your guitar and playing style. Again, the link for that is tonemob.com/stringjoy, and that will take you right to their website, and you can do all your shopping through there, and that will help everyone involved out. So thank you very much. Talk to you next time. We are brought to you by the wonderful folks at Gun Street Wiring Shop. Yes, Gun Street Wiring Shop. I've talked about them before. I used to say based out of Bend, Oregon, but guess what? Sean moved to my neck of the woods. Sean's in Portland. Sean is awesome and has helped me with a bunch of stuff lately. And if you have wiring needs for your guitar, he can help you too. If you want to get weird with it, he can get weird. If you just need to spruce things up a little bit, there's your guy. He takes all the guesswork out of doing your guitar wiring, and he makes it simple, and his customer service is top-notch, and I can't say enough good things about Gun Street as a company. I really respect Sean and what he's all about, and the product is top-notch. I've got 3 different guitars that now have Gun Street harnesses in them, and I could not be happier. So go to gunstreetwiringshop.com and check them out.
Hey, this is Aaron from No Simple Road. I'm inviting you to come hang out with Apple, Mel, and I as we talk with the musicians, artists, chefs, authors, and beyond from the world that turns us on. We're reaching into the improvisational music scene, the psychedelic culture, the festival world, and getting to know what makes the people tick that create those scenes. Come join us on the long, strange trip over at No Simple Road.
Hi, this is Paul Phelps.
And this is Monica Strutt.
And we're from the Daily Music Business Podcast. We're joined by a number of other really great hosts in creating daily content with great advice for independent musicians just like you.
That's right. We put out episodes daily on all topics from music marketing to branding, advice on signing with a manager and label, and anything else you need to up-level the business side of your music career. We've got it covered.
Subscribe to the Daily Music Business Podcast today on your favorite podcast catcher.
Subscribe today to the Daily Music Business Podcast on your favorite podcast platform.